Geography's look at Sam Giancana continues on A&E. It's the ultimate story of organized crime in America. It begins in Chicago in 1915 under a tree. Age 10, the future gangster is led out of the family home and whipped.
Sam's father chained him to the tree in the backyard and would beat him with a strap, beat him to the point where he cried for mercy, would be exhausted and laying on the ground into the wee hours of the night before he was released by his father.
Compared with his poor father, who barely spoke English, or dry old Italian priests, gangster Al Capone was a much more potent role model.
Barely 30. He controls policemen, judges, and mayors. And he openly...
Headquartered in the old Lexington Hotel, Capone exuded dark majesty.
His annual revenue is reported at over 100 million.
With police and judges in his pocket, Chicago was his captive city. The Patch was where poor Italians lived in Chicago. Expelled from school, Giancana was sent to a reformatory, then joined a street gang, the 42s. Barely more than children, they possessed a strange intimacy with torture and death.
Taking gang members, rival gang members, and we're talking rivals, we're talking about other ethnic groups, and they would literally torture them, burn them, break a leg, break arms, scar them, and leave them to be an example to other people.
The 42s included men like Mad Sam DeStefano, who in later life would slide ice picks into the brains of his victims. In such company, Giancana had to try hard to impress.
He explained he was an Italian boy, an Italian, in those days in Chicago, the Irish and the Polish were the people. He was a Dago, a Wop, a Guinea. They couldn't get any decent jobs. And he said they were the low-grade white people. And he said, of course, he had no money. He had to do things like all the kids did. They wanted it. He had to steal it.
They called him Mooney, crazy. Prohibition provided the violent backdrop to Mooney's rise. He drove bootleg whiskey around Chicago.
Crime never pays.
In fact, the profits from bootlegging were phenomenal. There was open war between bootleggers and the law. Giancana was like an animal force unleashed in the underworld. Brutal but subtle.
Death in the electric chair. Public enemies #1 of the world. Here is your throne.
For Giancana, the electric chair held no fears. He became a gun for hire, a freelance enforcer who killed to order.
From what I understand, yes, he put a few away.
Whatever messy demise Chicago gangsters prescribed for their enemies, Giancana would execute.
Shot him in the head, tortured a few, the way it's usually done in the outfit.
Didn't bother him?
Not a bit.
Barely out of his teens, legend had it, he had killed 20 men.
He was a ruthless killer. That's why he rose up in the organization. He did what others couldn't do.
He told his brother he enjoyed killing.
Killing someone made him feel more alive.
But Giancana also knew when to stop. Violence was just a means to an end. The real prize was power. win a place in the Capone gang, he betrayed his first boss, a gangster named Diamond Joe Esposito.
Sam and several other individuals made sure that Diamond Joe wasn't going to see the light of day anymore.
Yet, according to the distorted code of the underworld, Giancana was no traitor. He obeyed the mafia's laws. To his brother, Giancana claimed he had taken part in the most spectacular killing in gangland history, the St. Valentine's Day Massacre of Al Capone's enemies.
Reminiscent of scenes 13 years ago when John Barleycorn was buried. Now at hotels all over, Old Man Prohibition is buried.
Bootlegging had made him rich.
Take it, Mr. and Mrs. America. Here it is.
The end of Prohibition was a disaster for Giancana. The most profitable criminal activity in America had vanished.
Look what I've got.